Call the meeting to order. If you could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, October 7th, 2021, and this is the Town of Riverhead Planning Board meeting. First item on our agenda tonight is a discussion item for a revised site plan at 48 Cromer Avenue.
Good evening, everyone. I haven't seen you in a while. Last time you were meeting, I was on the slab, so doing much better now. For the first time in my life, I can actually breathe. So,
Welcome back.
yeah. I just want to provide a little recap of where we were and how we got to where we are this evening. Back in February 19th of last year, the town board granted a special permit for the application known as 48 Cromer. The application over the course of the last year and a half has been changed dramatically for a variety of reasons. DEC, fire safety, traffic circulation setbacks are some of the reasons why the application has evolved to where it is today. Back in June 3rd of this year, staff prepared a draft resolution for your consideration for preliminary site plan approval. The application was not approved. In September 10th of this year, we received a revised site plan of sheet SP-1.1, and that's the application or the sheet that you have in front of you this evening. On October 5th this year, staff prepared a report outlining the changes that you see on the June 11th plan. That was the last plan that you saw before you, and the plan that you see before you this evening. Just to outline what those changes are. The number of the 30,000 gallon storage tanks has been reduced from 8 down to 6. The setback of these storage tanks from the vacant abandoned railroad spur has been increased from 50 feet up to 59 feet. The tank enclosure area where these tanks would be stored has changed from 8,990 square feet down to 5,916 square feet. The storage area for the empty portable tanks increased from 4,913 square feet up to 9,965 square feet. The number of light fixtures has been reduced from 7 down to 5. And the parking number, while the configuration has changed slightly, the number of parking spaces remains at 94, which complies with the code. I did receive an email from Ray Dickoff yesterday. There's one setback that I did not put in my report, and that is the separation from the propane tanks to the proposed building. It has been increased from 53 feet 8 inches. Now it's 94-foot separation. Attached to this report, just so for your ease and the viewers' ease, I included a portion of sheet SP 1.1 showing the June 21st plan and the September 10th plan. So just you can have a side-by-side comparison of what the changes look like. We did receive a memo from the Chief Fire Marshal, Craig Zidek, that was dated September 21st of this year, and that's included as attachment to your staff report. Basically, it just says that all the plans, when they come in for a building permit, have to comply with the fire code. Today has been an active day with emails about the application. The first, and all these that were emailed to you, the first is a letter from Jonathan Brown, the attorney for the fire commissioners. They still oppose the application. Bob Kozakevich prepared a response back to Mr. Brown addressing his concerns. Marty Sanlewski prepared or took what was the June 3rd planning board resolution and prepared handwritten notes making amendments to the resolution based upon the revised plans. And they are going to be, I suspect, based upon that memo and handwritten changes, are going to be asking for a decision this evening. I have not been directed, nor have I prepared any amendment for your review and consideration this evening. And that's where we are today.
Okay, so we don't have a resolution that was prepared by yourself to act on tonight?
No.
And a lot of these communications were happening late this afternoon that were going on. So the one question I have, maybe the applicant can answer this. When you had the original 8 tanks proposed, I think you indicated that there would be approximately 15 tanker trucks filling them up per week? Is that correct?
That'd be a question for the applicant.
Yeah,
Okay.
if they want to come up.
Thank you.
Good evening, Martin Sanluski, architect for the applicant. The applicant is also here with me. Do we swear in on these or no?
No, this is not a public hearing.
You want to just answer that question, Frank, before I go?
It would be, depending on the season, in the winter and in the summer, probably of that many. Spring and fall, the trucking would definitely drop, because that's when the usage drops.
Okay, so assuming that your demand is the same as when you mentioned how many tankers were going in and out to keep it full, now that the size is reduced, is that going to increase the amount of tankers going in and out to fill it, I would assume?
Not really. It shouldn't affect the traffic, no, because, again, depends on the season, but no, I think we're still good. We're still good, because that's enough storage. We have plenty of storage.
Right, but you had indicated that, and I think it was 15 trucks a week to keep it
On an
full.
average.
On an average.
Right,
So
on an
now
average,
that
because we're
you-
going to have storage in the tanks, so they're never going to be empty, so we're never going to need to fill all of them up at the same time, so you're not going to have that type
So
of traffic.
my question is, the reduction in the number of tanks doesn't equate to more deliveries?
Not really, because it's an average.
Okay.
So it's still, it should be roughly the same.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, are there any other questions from the board on this, the revised application? Do we have any questions? So, the
Miss-
letter, yes,
Could I add a couple of items
Sure.
now? Is that okay?
yeah,
I would want to just comment about the one question you had. What's really happened with the reduction in tanks, like Frank said, it doesn't change as much their servicing their clients. Unfortunately, it does change his business plan. It reduces his purchasing power by 25% in terms of buying bulk. So he had to make that decision, so that is a sort of a negative impact on him. I would also note, just in terms of traffic, that we did receive a correspondence from New York State DOT that they anticipated no increase or traffic or no impact on Route 25. That's in the file. As you know, that we reduced from 8 to 6 tanks, and that's the impact that he's going to feel in terms of purchasing power. I just want to point out that revision was not based on any code requirement. We met the code completely with our previous application. My client has chosen to do this really at his own decision, hopefully in an attempt to bring this application to closure and to avoid litigation, which we're now in. And we had a stip that extended the next action before the judge until the 15th of this month. I presume there will not be a resolution tonight, so they'll have to go back and do another stip to extend it again. But certainly, this is all costing us time and money, so we hope it does not extend out too much further. I will just want to go on the record to say that, just so that there's no question that comes up of anybody on this board, we've reduced it from 8 tanks to 6 tanks. We're not making any more changes. We shouldn't have had to have made this one. We're making it at our own choice to try to get closure on this, and we're done. We're not going to make any more changes. So when you do come to a vote, it will be based on the current plan without any further changes that we will offer, even if requested. The revised plan, I had some notes here about the items that Jeff already spoke about, so I won't mention those. I was going to talk about all the things that you had received. The only thing I will add is that with regard to the fire district, and their letter that they sent today. Their engineer, they had a third-party engineer do a report that you had received a copy of based on the previous plan. I will note that their engineer's report did not note any deficiencies about our plan. It didn't say you should not approve it because. In fact, I think if you requested their engineer to put in writing that it should not be approved for some code reason, I assume he would not do that and put a seal on it because he would have no reason to do so. Ironically, the only thing that he did have as a recommendation was the distance to the railroad spur, which we've now increased. So, I mean, it wasn't even a requirement, but he said, well, you might want to consider moving it further. And as Jeff had said, we are also now much further away from the occupied building on our premises. So that's really a plus. Really, in closing, just with the board, when we started this process, I remember speaking to this board, and it was right after we had a cyber attack on our pipeline in the country. At that meeting, my specific words were that we needed adequate, safe supply of reserve, safe supply of reserve. Since that meeting, especially with the fire district, safety has been the big key word here. Safety, safety. It's all about safety. You know, code's one thing, but it's about safety. I get that. Reason I get it, my youngest son's a firefighter. He's a career firefighter. And he does a lot of continuing education, a lot of this stuff, a lot of code stuff, separations, sprinklers, distance separations. And when we're together, he tells me about some of his continuing education, and he asks me questions about it. I show him some of our plans. I talk to him about it, sort of help him along with it. He also talks about another part of safety that's in this equation, and that's training. And believe me, some of the training he tells me about scares me. I mean, those guys train. One of the things that is part of this application, and it's part of our fire safety plan, is that this gentleman and his company is going to provide fire safety training to our firefighters and support districts around First Mutual Aid with regard to fire safety on the site annually. That's training that's very valuable. When my son goes into a fire and he's faced with a situation, he doesn't pull out a book, go back to the apparatus and say, what's the code say? He goes based on what his training is. So these guys are going to have an opportunity to get training every year that's going to allow them, not necessarily on this site, because quite frankly, this is going to be the safest site in the town. It's got every safety requirement there is. But you know, there are a lot of buildings in town, there are a lot of other facilities that may not meet every safety requirement. And that's where that training comes in. So when you approve this, you're not only approving a plan that meets the code, you would be approving a plan that exceeds the code, and you would be approving a fire safety plan that's going to provide training to our firefighters, creating a safer situation if this project gets approved for our firefighters in this town than if it's denied. So I just want you to keep that in mind. I think that's a very important thing to note. Thank you.
Now, this may be a statement that I probably shouldn't make, but I have never heard, I was in the compressed gas business for 48 years. I have never, ever heard of a customer training a fire department. In 48 years, I've never heard of that.
We're bringing them in, we're bringing in the people
You
who
know,
build the tank.
and what happens if he doesn't complete this project? If he sells this project to somebody else, are they going to do the same thing? I mean, that's something we cannot put in in this resolution. The training has to be provided. We cannot do that.
We're not selling it, number one, building this.
Well,
it's gonna be here
I'm just,
forever.
all I'm doing is just looking at a scenario.
Yeah.
If you did. I like what you had to say. It's great. I don't know that fire people actually need training on this. I mean, I would think.
We're offering it to them. We're gonna do it.
Well,
we're
offering,
bringing-
yeah, okay. That's different from training. You know, we went on with training. But now you're offering it, and if they don't take it, you know, it's a moot point. But I get it. Thank you.
Well, it certainly, I think, is an advantage. And I think if you ask the fire chiefs, any fire chief, any firefighter, anybody from the board, but I don't think I see anybody here. I guess it wasn't as important for them to be here tonight to address this. They were given a notice that this discussion was going to happen tonight, so I don't know if anybody's here. Maybe I'm wrong. But you know what? It's better than not having the training, so it's going to be offered, and hopefully they would take
agree.
advantage of it. Maybe when they do have it, if my son's on a 48 off, maybe I'll fly him up here and have him attend, because I love him to have all the hands-on training he can get, because it makes him a safer firefighter than the code books do, and we exceed the code also. Thank you.
Your son is a fireman
Yes, he's a paid firefighter
in
in
the city?
North Carolina.
Oh, North Carolina.
So
Thank-
we certainly appreciate the revised site plan and scaling it back, trying to accommodate the fire district's concerns. And you are certainly entitled for us to bring this to a vote at our next meeting.
Thank you.
But the predicament that we're in, and maybe our council could advise us on it, is that we got the letter from, just today, this afternoon, late this afternoon, from the fire district saying that they're still opposed to it. And in the special permit that the town board issued, it says that the fire district and fire marshal will ensure safety of the project. So we're kind of in a predicament right now where the fire department isn't signing off on it, and it's left to us to interpret what the town board had put in front of us by granting the special permit and putting that language in it. So, I don't know, Dick, could you maybe offer any suggestions or, you know, how we might address this issue or this dilemma, so to speak?
So just some basic rules. A specially permitted use is a permitted use, not a non-permitted use. So we're not dealing with a non-permitted use here. We're dealing with a permitted use by special permit. And the special permit is supposed to adapt the particular characteristics of the use being permitted with the site and the surrounding area and the other community needs. So the town board is supposed to take that into consideration and use that information to fashion what the code doesn't have to assist us in understanding how to apply this use onto this specific site. So just sort of that's the basis. So what the town board did is they said in their finding that your board would use the fire marshal and the fire department to assure the safety of the facility. The applicant is saying, well, we've complied with the code, and therefore we believe that's what we have to do. And the fire department is saying that the combination of this facility with the adjacent facility makes it a different application than if they were just applying the code to the one facility. And I really don't know the answer to that multi-facility question. And the fire department didn't give us any guidance on that. I don't know if they could or not, but they've sort of raised a separate issue, which is if you have two of these together, is that a different thing? But then the town board should have considered that when they were permitting it to be next to it, but they said the fire department would help you out in understanding how to do that. So I don't think it's...
Okay. So I think the applicant at this point has made numerous attempts and sufficient attempts in my mind to solicit these comments from the fire district. They're offering training now. So, and I think we got our answer from them in writing today. So, you know, again, I said we'll bring it to a vote next meeting when Jefferson can work on a resolution 2 weeks from now. But perhaps we could just ask for an opinion from the town board in the meantime, what their interpretation of this may be, or what they intended to mean by putting that in the special permit approval resolution. Would that be appropriate?
Well, the boards, you know, historically, the boards have always spoken between themselves, and you can write the board and ask them
Okay.
for an interpretation there.
All right.
Certainly.
I'll do that, or Jefferson, we could do that over the next 2 weeks before the next meeting. But There'll be a resolution, and it'll be up for a vote at the next meeting.
And I just want to say one more thing, that I think what we should do is we should make the fire commissioners, the board, we should make them aware of the training aspect. I think that's important, okay? We should make them aware of it, that he is going to do that, because that may affect their decision
You would like that in the
in a
letter?
positive way.
You'd like that in the letter that's sent to the?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, I'd suggest, subject to how it works, that the letter be drafted and sent to the board, and then the board indicate that it's an acceptable letter and it be sent to the town board.
Okay.
Is that a fair?
Sure.
Jefferson, is that a fair way to do it? Okay.
I would just like to add or comment on that. The application for the special permit actually started in 18, and specifically in the code under 301.312, under special permit, there are items to be considered by the reviewing board. I submitted a written response to those items to the planning department on November 8th, 2018. That was in anticipation of our first public hearing, and COVID hit right after that. The day of our public hearing, we were shut down, so we got delayed for a year. After that year, when we then recontinued, what happened was there was a planning report that was done on February 10th, 2020. That report includes the fire marshal information that was transmitted to the fire department, okay? So the fire department did have a review. It's not that they did not have a review, they had a review. Those fire marshal comments were, which included comments, his comments were based on his review as well as his review with the fire chief, went to the planning department on January 16th, 2019. Subsequent to that, there were an additional report to the planning board, to the town board, about the special permit being required. That resulted in February 19th, 2020, the town board doing a secret determination, as well as publishing and posting the public hearing for the special permit. Again, in that publishing and the secret determination were based on the information provided to them by Mr. Murphy, which included the fire marshal's comments, which were reviewed with the fire department.
Was there a fully developed site plan at that point?
Yes,
Okay.
we were required, that's one of the things we sort of argued, why are we doing a fully engineered site plan now? But it's just the way Riverhead does things, so we just do the fully engineered site plan. We had the public hearing on August 18th of 2020, and there were no issues raised. It was noticed, nobody came, there was no issue with the fire department or the fire marshal. They read the reports, everything was good. And the resolution that was passed by the town board was on September 15th of 2020, and it does not require something from the fire district. It required comments that the safety plan be assured by the fire department, who had already reviewed the plan. The fire department reviewed the plan with the fire marshal.
Well, I don't want to revisit that because they dispute that, so let's
Well,
not even.
Mr.
revisit that.
Murphy actually sat in on one of those meetings personally, and he will attest that it
That's
did
not,
happen.
that's
So-
not exactly what happened. We don't need to go there.
Oh, well, that's fine. I'm just putting it on the record. That's all I'm doing.
Well, it was on the record that the fire district's attorney said that it didn't happen that way either, so.
Well,
we're past-
unfortunately.
We're past that.
Yeah, but unfortunately, all of the information that the fire district has put in writing, none of it is supported by the facts and the code on the case. It's strictly their opinion, and quite frankly, they're not an involved agency. And under the rules of the New York State, the role and the duties of fire commissioners, commenting on code and applications is not under their authority under the state law, okay? And therefore, the fire commissioners, anybody could be a fire commissioner. Anybody in this room, if they get the votes, they're a fire commissioner. They don't even need to know what end of a hose to aim toward a fire. Doesn't matter. They can be a fire commissioner. I work for a lot of districts in the
Right,
state
but
of
I
New
mean,
York.
we're
and-
going over past history
Right.
and,
Well, I think it's good to have
every
on the
one of
record.
them were ex-fire chiefs, so what you're saying doesn't apply to them.
Well, but you guys rang the bell about the resolution of the town board with regard to the special permit. My comments are reflecting that it was addressed and it was covered properly in accordance with all requirements. So I just want that to be noted on the record prior to your vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Stan, I just wanted to thank you for realizing that we tried to reach out to the fire commissioners. So I just want to bring you up to date, because I don't know what communication you guys have with them or don't, but we went to no less than 8 meetings.
Well, I saw, we get all of Marty's emails.
You do get them, right,
so-
okay, so just from day one with this whole project, we've been nothing but transparent and compliant, like, we want to comply, we want safety. I told you last meeting, nobody wants this thing safer than me, because I'm sitting 100 yards away from this, and with my
Right.
kids, and I'm going over and above with this. We're putting a $250,000 fire suppression system on here that's not required by code, but I'm putting it on just for an added precaution. This project is going to be the most state-of-the-art project in the whole country. Everything else around here, or even the plant guys that build it said the other ones are dinosaurs. It's going to be the safest, the most state-of-the-art. The fire commissioners, when we go to the fire commissioners and try to get a dialogue with them, to what are your concerns, what are your thoughts, what are the issues, we can't even get them to talk to us. All 5 of them put their head down and refer to the attorney. And then the attorney just says, we're not here to debate, we're not here to argue, we're not here to, you can't even get a dialogue with them. Like, we want to bring them in, they felt like they weren't, spoken to about it in the beginning, so, all right, well, we brought them the plan. They hired their own engineer. Do you know, they wouldn't even, as I'm going back to transparency, they wouldn't give us the questions that they had. We had to foil my own questions that they had for the engineer. They wouldn't tell us what engineering company that they hired. I mean, this is public information. We had to foil who they wanted to use for an engineering company. I hired, is that fair, really?
we only saw the final report,
That's
so-
what I'm saying. I don't think you're getting the whole thing. I would rather of them just told us in the beginning that no matter what you do, we're going to oppose it. Then we know what we're dealing with. But we wasted another 6 months with the back and forth. They hired their own engineering team that found no problems with the plan. Nothing. No problems. So what can we do, man? You're talking about offer training. We're offering training. If they don't take the training, I'm offering it. I'm paying for it out of pocket. I can't force the guys to show up, but if I'm offering it, I mean, really, right? So we just really want to get through this. We're asking you for your yes vote. If you have any questions, any concerns, we're happy to address them. We just the next meeting, we're asking for your yes vote. We have 2. We need 1 more. Hopefully, we get all 5 because we want everybody to be satisfied. That's the goal. That's the plan. If there's any questions, George, I'm happy to answer anything. Everything is transparent. We're transparent. Just the left hand's not talking to the right hand. Let's get this thing done.
Okay,
All right?
Thank you.
Just get me out of your hair.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is Peconic Farms major subdivision.
I'm gonna sit up here so I don't have to
Okay.
keep moving my files. You can have the application. Thank you. So this is the continued discussion for the Peconic Farms major subdivision application. It's a subdivision application seeking to subdivide an existing vacant 9.57 acre parcel of land, which is located on Peconic Bay Boulevard, directly adjacent to the town-owned Jamesport boat ramp. The property is zoned RA 40. As I said, it's vacant. It consists of an area used for agriculture and approximately 3.9 acres of existing wooded vegetated area. The purpose of this discussion is related to SECRA. The applicant has been working with us, submitting revised plans. They did just submit a packet of information yesterday, which I distributed to the board members here. It was their responses to some of my comments, but this is a unique property that we're looking at. Initially, which was not disclosed on the full EAF or anywhere in the application, a substantial portion of the property is located within a flood zone AE6. It has shallow depth to groundwater based on the test borings. You've got shallow depth to groundwater between 3.1 feet and 3.4 feet below groundwater. There's potential for nitrogen loading into the East Creek due to the proximity. And really, there's a lot of questions on this property regarding developability, complying with FEMA flood zone regulations, town code requirements, which deal specifically with development in flood zones. It states that fill can be brought into flood zones. They must demonstrate, there's a specific section of code, 233-12G, which says that a technical analysis by a licensed professional engineer, if required by the local administrator, which shows whether proposed development to be located in an area of special flood hazard may result in physical damage to any other properties. There was also the area is identified as an archaeologically sensitive area. This was not initially disclosed again. They have submitted revised EAFs, which do disclose this information. I had prepared a September 1st memo to the board. Based on all of these factors, we have to look at this application comprehensively. What the applicant is applying for, it's not for a yield map approval. The applicant is looking to develop this property. So we have to look at the application and all its factors comprehensively. We can't just approve a yield map and then we're beholden to, whether it's 7 lots, 8 lots, 9 lots. You kind of tie your hands and you're making a decision before you really can analyze all the factors. I did forward their response memo to Vinnie Gaudiello. I haven't had a chance to speak with him about it yet, but I will bring the board up to speed once I do. So it's really to try to move this along in one direction or another. I know we have met representatives from the application here, but this is really a follow-up. This is where we left off. A lot of these questions were unanswered.
Are these lots going to be able to, I know New York Rising has certain standards as far as elevations of houses. Are they going to be able to meet these? Are you familiar with New York Rising?
I am not. I'm sure a member of the representative team would be familiar with that and could answer those
I
questions.
just want to make sure that they're going to be able to meet those standards.
So Vinnie hasn't looked at this response yet that we just received?
No, I sent it to him. I haven't had a chance to speak with him about it yet. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it is a unique piece of property looking to develop in a flood zone with shallow depth of groundwater. The board's really got to consider this.
Didn't we talk the last time about importing of soils? There's a special,
Yeah, so there are requirements in the town code that deal with importing fill into flood zones. They would have to, it would result in a conditional revision to the firm, the flood insurance rate map. FEMA approval would be required to import it. I mean, the question, and I believe I've spoken with the applicant's attorney, is at what point does the board make a secret determination? We have traditionally not made a secret determination at yield map phase, but again, we have not been dealing with properties that are in flood zones and have very shallow depth of groundwater.
We haven't been able to get out of this stage because of all these questions.
Correct. They've submitted a number of revised yield maps. Vinnie has come back with comments regarding appropriateness of the drainage, location. It's just, we've never reviewed a subdivision application since I've been here that's got these unique set of circumstances regarding the
Have you ever met
developability.
with the applicant?
We have.
And were they ever asked if they could consider, open space development or?
They did submit they do have a cluster plan that does preserve a lot of that that does preserve the,
No, I meant preserving, selling the entire parcel.
that's not really, I haven't recommended to the applicant, that's not really in my
No,
purview to recommend.
I understand you don't recommend, I'm just curious if it was an option.
I'm sure they could probably approach the county. We've had other applicants that are looking to, with other applications, though, they have had to get to a preliminary plat phase. So, if that was something that would be considered, they would have to move forward through this process.
Yeah, I understand, but it'd be a lot easier to go through this process if the property was going to be preserved at the end of the day.
Greg, do you think that might be the ultimate intent? In other words, get it approved and then...
I can't speak to that.
The
You'd
applicant's
have-
here, right?
Yeah, we have,
Who's-
there's a number of representatives here for the application, if the board has
who's-
questions.
Who's here for, I know Young and Young is here, but you're the attorney, right? Your name, please?
Yes, Martin Finnegan,
Martin Finnegan, right?
good evening. So, yes, we're still at the yield map phase, and I understand that staff has raised some concerns about this property, but we have submitted a revised yield map. We have submitted a substantive response to all of these concerns. And I would respectfully disagree with the need to make a secret determination at this stage, let alone a positive declaration. I think if the board has the opportunity to review what has been submitted, all of the concerns raised by staff have been addressed. The changes to the yield map address the concerns regarding flooding and groundwater. We have consulted with SHPO. We have commissioned a Phase 1 analysis to address any potential archaeological sensitivity of the property. However, I think, as this board is aware, the property is located in South Jamesport, where pretty much the entire area is in an archaeological sensitive area. So we don't believe that will be an issue. I think we're confident that all of staff's concerns have been or will be addressed in short order. If there are questions regarding any of the specific issues raised, Tom Mulpert is here, Doug Adams is here, Chuck Thomas is here as the project architect. I think any of them can be addressed by the board. They have been already in writing, but we'd be happy to do that. But, at this stage, we're talking about yield. We're talking about a math calculation of the available lots. You're not approving a subdivision when you approve a yield. We know we have a lengthy process to proceed through and a lot of issues to discuss that could have an impact on what is ultimately built there. But to stop us in our tracks at a yield map phase seems incredibly premature. And as Greg acknowledged, this is something that isn't even usually addressed until the preliminary plat phase. So we're just trying to get the yield approved so we can continue the discussion and move forward. This is not a planning board committing to a subdivision approval.
Right, but I
So-
think our
so-
engineering consultant is saying that what you're proposing, it's not sufficient for the calculations, is what he's questioning.
But I believe.
So how can we approve a yield map if our engineer's telling us that it's not sufficient? The calculations don't, he doesn't agree with them.
I think there's been a
Elevations and-
response. There's been a response to the town engineer's
Okay.
comments. I think he hasn't had a chance to review that response, and I believe that it will address his concerns.
Okay.
So we are confident that they can be addressed and that we can continue the dialogue. The applicant is eager to proceed. There is a significant amount of open space that is a component of the proposed cluster plan. So at this point, if the board has questions, our team is available to respond, but we would like to advance the ball here and get this in a
quick
position.
question for you. I have a drawing here, which is yield map, and it's dated May, the latest date is May 19th. Is that the latest?
No,
yield map?
there's been a submission, I believe it's October 5th. It was just, there was a concern about showing the FEMA information. The map has been updated to show that.
Let's see.
I may have printed out the wrong map. I mean, they did submit a revised yield map that does include the flood zone information.
Oh, here it is. Okay. And that's dated July 17th?
No, I think I printed out the wrong
Oh,
map.
yeah, I think you did.
But
That's the first one.
they did submit a revised map with their submission.
So you gotta get that.
That does have, yeah, and I sent that over to Vinnie.
This one I have says October 5th. FEMA, October 5th.
The drawing?
That's the most recent.
And the
Yeah,
yield
that's the
map
one.
does have the flood zones on it.
We just received that tonight, Joe.
Yeah.
Okay.
one question I see is too, when they're talking about the nitrogen loading on East
I'd like to
Creek,
get a copy.
the travel time is estimated at 2.4 feet per day. Where is that number being arrived from?
I'll let Doug take that one.
Good evening, everyone. Basically, the Suffolk County Soil Survey gives you, for the different types of soil you have, the infiltration rate and what they call KSAT when it's saturated, and that's where that's basically derived from, basically from the soil survey.
Were there any test borings done there?
There were.
And wasn't it, here it is.
Are they shown on the plan?
Yep. It's pretty sandy soil, right?
Yes.
I don't know, I've just, in my experience, that looks very high, almost double what it normally is for groundwater travel times. So, but we'll let our engineering expert look over this and provide comments, and then we'll make a decision on the secret determination, hopefully at our next meeting.
No, it's an older map.
Okay, well, I would just renew our request that a secret determination be deferred until a later time in the proceeding. We have made a concerted effort here to respond to the concerns. I think once the board has an opportunity to review the submission, the engineers, project engineers are available to speak directly with the town engineer and further address any concerns, and we'd like to, work towards yield map approval so we can get on to the next level of the process.
Okay. Thank you. Greg, can you ask Vinnie to have his comments before our next meeting? Yes. Okay, next item on the agenda is Bating Hollow Farm and Vineyard Tasting Room Expansion. This one's yours too, right, Greg?
Yes, sir. So we did have the public hearing for the Bating Hollow Vineyard Tasting Room Expansion, which is a site plan proposing to construct an approximately 6,000 square foot style, barn-style wine tasting pavilion with cellar for winemaking and processing, to construct a farm equipment barn, and to convert wine processing building into a bathroom facility, and legalize other improvements which are done without benefit of a permit. I do have a preliminary approval resolution on. I did distribute it to the board. I did distribute it to the applicant. That resolution just, provides a history of the application, details some of the New York State Department of Ag and Markets laws, and their guidelines for review of local laws which affect farm operations which produce, prepare, and market crops for wine, beer, and cider, and distilled spirits. That is a guidance document from January of 2017. I just detailed, history of the application, the production report which they provided, which was from December of 2020, which demonstrated that the farm produced a total of 35.1 tons of grapes for harvest, and that they utilized Premium Wine Group's facilities to produce a total of 5,837 gallons of wine, or 2,435 cases. I did include recitations from the applicant, Sean Kelly, at the August 5th public hearing, where he attested to the fact that he has a speaker system and a sound system, which he is under sole control of. He does not allow any type of performers or anybody else to plug into his system or have control over that sound system, so he is in sole control of the sound levels produced on site. He did recite the fact at the public hearing that the current location where any live music is currently played will be relocated further away from Sound Avenue, and it'll be on the north side of the proposed building, which will be further away from the residences on Sound Avenue. And I did want to just go over some of the conditions, which again, I spoke with the applicant. He has received a copy of this resolution. He had no objections. So the preliminary approval we have, I'll just read through them. Number one, the processing, marketing, and sale of wines produced on the farm is accessory to the principal agricultural production on the subject property. If at any time agricultural production ceases to take place on the subject property, the tasting room use and any other accessory use shall no longer be permitted. Number 2, that there shall be no kitchen in the wine tasting pavilion, and there shall be no cooking of food on site. Number 3, that the applicant and all subsequent operators of the business are familiar with the noise ordinances provisions of the Riverhead Town Code, Chapter 251, and they shall abide by all applicable regulations of the town code regarding noise. Number 4, that the applicant and all, there was a slight spelling error, that the applicant and all subsequent operators of the site shall maintain sole control over the sound system on site, and that any bands, musical groups, disc jockeys, etc., will be required to utilize the existing sound system and prohibited from utilizing their own equipment. And then, I won't read this verbatim, but there is number 5 is a rather lengthy recitation from the New York Ag and Markets Guidelines. Basically states that the applicant has to keep sufficient financial records to demonstrate to the town that any type of special events or any type of events that they may have on the property, that the gross sales from that do not exceed 30% of the total gross sales of the products that are produced on the farm. It's basically a control measure to ensure that, this is a farm vineyard, they're producing wine. Any events that they're holding would be used to further market their wine and help the sale of wine. This is not approving a catering facility. So they have to keep those financial records. They have to provide a detailed breakdown and provide them on an annual basis to the town or upon reasonable request. And I did want a couple of minor revisions to the plans, that a note on sheet C100 shall be revised to cite the correct section under which the wine tasting is considered accessory under town code. And that the site plan sheet C100 shall be revised to show the location of all outdoor sound system components, including speakers, and shall indicate the manufacturer and model information of the components. And they also need to be revised to comply with the town engineer's comments. So that's the yes, sir.
It says no cooking.
Correct.
What does that mean exactly? Because most places that serve alcohol also serve food. What do you mean, no food and no cook? I'm just trying to
The
be
intention
clear.
behind it was no full-service kitchen, so
No
this is not,
full-service kitchen.
and I mean, maybe the wording could be corrected on that.
Yeah, because
Maybe
that's not really clear, because most places that serve alcohol do serve food.
Alright.
So I think no full-service kitchen might be.
So maybe that shall be, and we'll amend it to be
Yeah,
no full-service kitchen.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, if they have some like service sinks
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
just
they
some
can-
clean,
they
an
can-
area to prepare, no
They can
full-service
offer
kitchen.
prepackaged, pre-made, or premises type,
Correct.
fare.
I forgot your name, sir. Sean, did you read the resolution?
Yes, I do, and I have no objections to it.
Have you satisfied the comments of the Water District?
Excuse me?
Satisfied the comments of the Water District?
Yeah, I spoke with my engineers about it. They had no issues with it.
I took a ride by there Sunday in the height of the pumpkin season, and I didn't go into particular your wine, I'm sure it's good, but I did look at your operation, and I found it to be professional and well-oiled machine.
Thank you.
Greg, were you finished?
No, just one thing before the site plan, I know the vineyards during the busy season, parking is an issue, just for the record, and we have gone over this with the board. Based on the size of the building and the uses, I believe they're required to provide somewhere in the neighborhood of 66 parking stalls. I believe they're providing 160, if I'm not mistaken, or 180. In early discussions with the applicant, the traffic and parking along Sound Avenue was brought up to an issue, it was raised as an issue. And it was advised, provide as much on-site parking as you can. We don't want to ever create a situation where people are going to be parking on Sound Avenue, trying to cross the street during the busy time. So they are providing parking well in excess of what would be required under the code.
And I'm sure you observed then this weekend, we didn't have any
No,
parked
it was-
on the street, and we're about as full as we
Yeah,
could have been.
It was welcome.
So at the last meeting, we had a discussion, and we had recommended an opinion from the town attorney, which he provided. And I believe you had mentioned that the judge in the past ruling said, mentioned incidental noise. So the town attorney said that nowhere in the short form order dated July 10th, 2017, did the judge use the phrase incidental noise. It wasn't in there at all, he said. And he also said that the judge rejected the arguments made by Baiting Hollow Farm Vineyards that amplified music was protected farm practice. He rejected the argument by Baiting Hollow Farm Vineyards that injunctive relief was not available. And he made no ruling on whether amplified music was not allowed. So I just wanted to clarify that because we had been kind of told otherwise at the previous meeting you were at.
Our position is that there's no law in the town of Riverhead prohibiting live, outdoor, amplified music.
Right, and there's...
What they were talking about in the court order was that the town of Riverhead was saying they needed a special events permit in order to play music outside. And the court said, no, you do not need a permit for that. And the town attorney wrote me a letter today, or last week, where he said that while the town code does not contain any strict prohibition, it is clear that the impact from noise are a matter that can be considered by the planning board.
Okay.
And that's why we're here.
Right.
But the question that you had last time was, and you as well, I'm sorry, that you heard that live outdoor music was prohibited on the Sound Avenue corridor. And after all of us now reviewing the town code, that's not true.
Right. My point also was that we had never allowed it before on Sound Avenue. We used Grapes and Greens as an example. We did not allow outdoor music to be amplified there. Jamesport Winery, I think it was the same situation.
Jamesport Farm Brewery.
Farm Brewery, I'm sorry, and then, well, the other one's not a farm use, the bowling alley. So, in my opinion, I think this resolution that's in front of us tonight, and we'll certainly vote on it, is setting a very dangerous precedent for Sound Avenue. I think it's a stretch of the use to allow bands and these parties along Sound Avenue. I think is a first step in ruining the historical nature of Sound Avenue. So I will not be able to support just this broad outdoor music being controlled by yourself.
Well, let me address what the town attorney also said. I had asked or laid out other venues, and Jamesport Brewery and Grapes and Greens, those are not vineyards, okay, first off. I mentioned Palmer Vineyard and RGNY, and he said, well, there's no prohibition of music on those, but they were approved prior to the Town of Riverhead's comprehensive plan of 2003. Now, post-2003, Clovis Point Vineyard was given a site plan approval with no restrictions on music as well. So that's post-2003.
Where is Clovis Point? Which one is that? Where is that located?
Clovis Point,
It's in James.
Main Road? Okay.
okay. So, based on the town attorney's, notation about the 2003 plan, I decided I would read the comprehensive plan in 2003. Because I'm thinking maybe sometime in 2003 that the town of Riverhead wanted to try to reduce the amount of music and stuff like that that may happen at the vineyards. But I found that to be the exact opposite. The vision statement that was laid out in 2003, states, I quote, with the increasing popularity of the North Fork as a tourist destination, Riverhead should develop attractions that can capture a significant portion of the emerging tourist industry in general and agritourism in particular. Although the first vines were planted in 1973, the East End wine country did not start attracting significant tourism until the mid to late 1990s. Following the footsteps of the Northern California Napa Valley, the East End vineyards and wineries have developed tourist facilities and activities such as guided tours, wine tasting, wine sales, eateries, gourmet delis, and gift shops. Many also have banquet facilities for parties, weddings, businesses, functions, and other events. And then at the end of the 2003 comprehensive plan, they had a list of goals. And it said the goal was to promote the growth of the wine industry and the agritourism in Riverhead. Encourage vineyards and wineries to develop facilities, amenities, and attractions that cater to tourists. Such amenities include wine tasting, tours, gift shops, banquet facilities, eateries. And then it says, the town zoning provisions need to be flexible to allow such uses.
So we're not the zoning board, and I didn't hear you say outdoor music anywhere, amplified outdoor music. So that's why it's left up to the planning board. Now, I may very well be in the minority, but I just wanted to put my opinion out there, but
But if every other vineyard is allowed to have outdoor weddings with outdoor music, and everyone can, I put a listing from everyone's website to the town attorney's letter, they all advertise it, and then you would suggest to prohibit that from mine, I think that would put me at a strict disadvantage.
I don't know that this board has approved those outdoor weddings. They may be an allowable use, but where is the music, is what we're focusing on here.
They're all outdoor weddings with outdoor bands. They're as
Well,
plain as anybody who tries to
Since
book a
I've been on
wedding.
the board, we didn't allow it at Grapes and Greens, and that's the only one that comes to recent memory for
But
me
they're not
on
a vineyard.
Sound Avenue in that
But they're not a
area.
vineyard. They're not a vineyard. Grapes
Same.
and Greens is 40 feet off of Sound Avenue. My building is going to be 260 feet off of Sound Avenue before the first
Well,
speaker
listen.
is out there.
It's my opinion that we're setting a dangerous precedent here, so that's where I am. And I will note also for the record that we received numerous signatures from the public in the area, just for the record, and letters. I don't know, I didn't count them all, but probably over 100 for people who live in the area. So just for the record, I'll add that.
Well, for the record, I also had a bunch of my neighbors stop by and tell me that they had some annoying person knocking on their door asking them to sign a petition about me, and they all refused to.
Well, 100 people didn't,
Well,
so,
they're not the people across the street that would be hearing the music.
okay. All right, is there any other questions by the board?
No, sir.
Anything else, Greg?
No, that's
It'll
it.
come up for a vote on the resolutions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is 817 Glasky Street Self-Storage Facility. This is back after zoning, right, Greg?
That's correct. I am now the fourth employee who's had their hands on this application, so I was just picking up after, after zoning board. So just a very quick recap of it. It's a site plan application proposing to construct a two-story, total square footage will be 40,000 square foot of self-storage warehouse at the site of an existing mixed-use commercial property, as well as perform lighting, paving, landscaping, and drainage improvements. The planning board, by resolution number 2020-034, dated June 18th of 2020, classified the action as an unlisted action. They assumed lead agency and issued a negative declaration pursuant to SECRA. The project location is on the southwest corner of Marcy Avenue and Pulaski Street in Riverhead, the site of the Long Island Brewery. This application did require relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals for a substandard rear yard setback, which was proposed at 33 feet 4 inches, where 50 feet was required. The applicant did obtain that relief from the Zoning Board by appeal number 2020-010. The application has been reviewed by the ARB. My staff report does contain an error. Kim Judd, the attorney for the applicant, did give me information that this application was subsequently reviewed by the ARB, I believe on January 27th, and they did recommend approval at that time. There were some minor revisions to the plans that need to take place, nothing significant, nothing that would trigger any types of additional variances. At this point, the application's been around, and I do have a resolution to move it to public hearing, now that they've received the necessary variances.
Question.
Yes.
On the parking for this facility, I know there's a little mistake in there, it's 40,000 feet, it's not 20 as it shows on this, but how much parking is required?
So Warehousing is it's the least intense parking demand by the town code. The total spaces required, and again, this is based on the incorrect calculation. Based on that calculation, they're required to provide 53 parking spaces. If you include the additional 20,000 square feet of self-storage space, the rate of warehousing parking is only one additional space per 10,000 once you get past 5,000. So it would only result in 2 additional stalls. So for all intents and purposes, the parking required would be 55 stalls, and they are providing 103. There was, on old versions of the plans, and I mean, this is just going back based on the prior build-out of the site, there was some parking which was located partially within the town right-of-way on Marcy Avenue. This application, they are going to remove all that parking and bring everything to the interior of the site, so there will be no parking on any town right-of-ways.
I have a question for the applicant. I don't know whether I have an up-to-date plan or not, but the plan that I'm looking at doesn't show where the water supply is coming from.
It's the proposed water service and sewer line.
Is there 10-foot separation there? For the water and sewer?
Is there a 10-foot separation for the water and sewer?
More than that?
I think in the report it showed that there were already 2 services going in there, but they were going to upgrade one of them.
Yeah, there were comments, I mean, I know, and again, it's because there's multiple users on the property. I know Long Island Brewery wanted to expand their service.
Got a
but this-
5/8 meter, and they got a 5/8 meter in
Yeah,
there.
but this building would be served by a separate line.
This is all still gonna be one parcel, right?
Correct.
Okay, I didn't see any comments from the fire marshal. Was this referred to the fire marshal?
When this application was initially received, Karen was working on it. I would be shocked if she did not refer it to the fire marshal, but I did not see comments in the file. Again, it's kind of bounced around. I can make sure we get comments from the fire marshal regarding, sprinklering if it's required, and any potential safety issues before approval.
It just, distances from the rear property line and truck turning radius, those things, just, he usually confirms all that, right? I just didn't see it in the report.
I'll make sure we receive them prior to any approval.
Greg, there was a report that Brian Cunningham had done as well, and I think it was in that one, within a year and a half ago.
With the fire marshal comments?
I'm looking for it, I know,
I can look at Brian's files on the computer. If we have it, I'll get them to the board.
Yeah, so we scheduled a public hearing for this next, so, we have some time if we don't have it.
Did you hear anything from Suffolk County Clerk? You said it was referred to them.
I'll check the file again. I didn't see anything in there. It might have been in Karen's files, could have been in Brian's.
This was secret
And
coordinated.
John Flood was also on it too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy trying to pick up something after 3 other people have done it, but
All right,
I'm
any other?
sorry, it's John Flood's son, CF for. Let's see it.
All right, so let's get it to the fire marshal,
all right.
please. Any other questions or comments? All right, so we'll schedule a public hearing tonight, and we'll take it from there, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item, Riverhead Charter School, Northville Schoolhouse.
All right, so Kim Judd is the representatives for the applicant on this application as well. This discussion will serve as both a referral from the town board for a special permit application, as well as a discussion of the site plan application. So the town board received a special permit seeking approval to convert an existing building along Sound Avenue into a schoolhouse. And the planning board has received a site plan application proposing site improvements. The project site is located at 5117 Sound Avenue, which is approximately 1,600 feet east of the intersection of Sound Avenue and Phillips Lane. Property is presently improved with a two-story, roughly 4,700 square foot building with associated parking areas. It also contains a single-family residence on the southern portion of the property, as well as a detached car garage and shed. The site is served by 3 curb cuts on Sound Avenue. One of those curb cuts serves as a driveway to the single-family residence. The schoolhouse building would be served by 2 curb cuts, a one-way in and one-way out. There are existing gravel parking areas in the front and on the side of the building, as well as on the rear of the building. The site plan application does propose to provide asphalt ADA parking stalls on the southern portion of the building, as well as construct an ADA accessible ramp into the schoolhouse. There are a couple of minor things which I brought up during the review of the special permit with the town board. Some minor details as in the site plan shows that there will be directional arrows and striping on the gravel. Obviously, due to the nature of gravel, striping and providing arrows on the, it just doesn't.
How long is it gonna last?
Correct, doesn't seem feasible, so I had made some recommendations to the applicant to delineate the parking stalls, maybe with railroad ties or concrete bumpers, provide appropriate one-way signage on the driveways.
Nice big building, they've been working on it.
Yeah,
It looks pretty good.
Correct, I mean, this historically had been a schoolhouse. I spoke to Richard Wines, the Landmarks Preservation Commission Chair. He said his mother went to school here in the 30s, so I mean, it has history as a schoolhouse. You know, the site plan issues, they do show a proposed land-banked parking stall area. Based on the use of the school, the proposed school use, the parking code would only require 7 parking stalls. They currently have a total of 22 regular stalls on gravel, and then there's going to be 2 handicap accessible stalls. That proposed land bank parking area would add an additional 12 stalls if required. There is a provision in the town code which allows the reviewing board to allow an applicant to land bank stalls. They do meet the minimum the requirements for improved parking. Couple of issues that I had asked the applicant to provide details on. The number of buses that would be utilizing the site. They have a estimated enrollment of 106 students. So I asked for information on number of buses, bus circulation, queuing, the number of buses that could queue up in the driveway so as to not, back up onto Sound Avenue. One thing that the board may consider, we'll transmit any recommendations back to the town board. If they'd want to see any kind of deceleration lanes leading up to the schoolhouse to get the buses off of Sound Avenue. And considering, you're going to have the western driveway would be the entrance, the eastern driveway would be the egress. Rather than having buses try to make a left on Sound Avenue, if bus exits could be restricted to make a right out of that site, they could then go down to Church Lane to get back onto Route 25. Again, I don't think they're, Monday through Friday school hours, they're not really going to be conflicting with harvest season traffic, but just some considerations for the
Hey, Greg?
board. Yes.
I didn't notice, is there an outdoor play area, and is it gonna be fenced off? I see there's a lot of open space back there, but.
Correct. That is something that I had asked the applicant, I would assume during a school. Right now, the site plan does not identify any areas for outdoor recreation. That's something that they would need to identify. If they're gonna provide fencing, make sure that kids aren't gonna run into Sound Avenue. It needs to be in a safe and appropriate place. I did also notice during a site visit that there's really no site lighting. The only lights that I saw in the building were like a wall sconce out in front of the main door and a floodlight out in the back. So being that it will be utilized in the winter, they should provide some parking lot lighting and site lighting to ensure that the site is safe. Minor things like they need to just show dumpster enclosures. We did refer to the water district. They stated that the site is served with a 1-inch water service and would not be sufficient for a new school. So they'll need to work with the Riverhead Water District to provide details on what the proposed served water needs would be. The plans were referred, we got comments from the building department. The plans were sent to the fire marshal. I did refer them to the Highway Department. At staff's recommendation, they are proposing asphalt aprons at the entrance to Sound Avenue to just help with control of gravel being tracked into the roadway. And they will be updating the existing sanitary system on site. The applicant has stated that they're going to put a new IA system in to serve the school.
Serve that building or the other buildings as well?
Just the school building. The applicant advises that the house, not an IA system is installed.
Maybe we gotta go to the voting, can't speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kimberly Judd for the applicant. The landlord releasing, the charter school's leasing the premises, stated that there was a new sanitary system put in for the residents about 2 or 3 years ago.
That was one, the initial buildings, I guess, right?
Oh, no, that was for the house on the lot.
This one,
Right, because if you look at the map, you'll see there's a house on the back of the property. So there was a new sanitary system installed 2 to 3 years ago for the house. And then the landlord is going to be installing a new IA system for the school.
the school.
So who, they're leasing this from the owner of that house back there? Is that what they're
No,
doing?
the owner of the property is John Reeve Jr. And,
The whole property is John
Yes.
Reeve Jr., and someone's still gonna be in that back house?
I don't know.
Is that gonna be part of the school operation? Okay. And you mentioned, Greg, 106 students, is that right, what you anticipate to be here?
Yes.
So, I mean, what does that, he questioned about bus queuing. I mean, how many buses that equate to? Probably not very many, right?
We estimate 5 to 6 buses, and then we do have a queue plan that shows 7 buses comfortably
Okay.
queued in the U driveway. And I don't know if you wanted to mention anything, Darrell. I think you wanted, I'm sorry, Alec Kaczynski from Buller Engineering.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to correct Greg on something. This is actually going to be a high school, so the code's actually different. It's 1 stall per 3 seats. So we're required 36 stalls. We're providing 22. I just wanted the board to know that the students won't be able to drive to school. They're only going to be dropped off or bused to school with an anticipation of about 6 state buses. We're going to provide a queuing plan. We can get 7 comfortably, even 8 into the stack. They're all going to be at that. It's not going to cause any issues with the employees that are there. They anticipate about 12 to 18 employees, so there's adequate parking. We're providing 22 with the additional land bank stalls for any kind of future expansion. So we are meeting code to address the outdoor play issue. In our revision, which I will file tonight or tomorrow morning with the town, we have about 8,500 square feet of outdoor play area. So I'll lean on the board on whether you want it to be fenced or not, but there's actually adequate space for a rec area. We will be providing new lighting for the school for safety reasons that are town compliant, so there'll be LED lights, decorative lights to match the trend of the building, which is, as you know, a little historic, but they will be compliant to town code. The last thing, as far as the arrows, we are going to put now signage, one-way signage, throughout the parking lot to kind of maneuver people through the school. And I'd lean on the board on whether, we can, whether we want to stripe the stalls, put some kind of bumper stops. We're open to suggestions as far as what would be the best course of action. However, the ADA stalls will be concrete, they will be striped, and there will be accessibility. So they'll be striped, so anyone that needs ADA accessibility to school can find those stalls and access to a ramp.
Is there a ramp into the building?
Yes, it's located in the back. It's going to be ADA compliant.
And just to reiterate what you said, as far as the students will not be allowed to drive to school.
Correct.
That's a requirement of the school?
Yes, and we have someone here from the school that can speak on behalf of the school requirements, but yes, there's 106 students. We estimate about 6 to 8 buses, and, and you'll see in the plan that will be provided to the planning board, we have ample space for the buses to stack up.
So is this application subject to the approval of the State Department of Education? Do we know that? I know the last time the school district was doing it, so it has to go after or simultaneously, or after we approve it, it goes there, or? After you approve. Okay,
What's the next step?
all right.
Public hearing?
Well, no, they've got to get the special permit first.
Well, that was my question. So we can't go any further until they get the special permit, right?
Correct.
Even though it was a school in the past, they
Yeah,
Many
it
years.
had been, It had received, there's been a bunch of building permits
Okay.
issued, it's changed uses a bunch of times.
It was, you probably, a lot of you board members will know, it was East End Christian Academy for maybe 13 years before Mr. Reed purchased it. So it was, East End Christian Academy was a Christian school. It was at several different locations in Riverhead at different times.
Did they keep the schoolrooms the way they were?
I'm sorry?
Did they keep the schoolrooms the way they were years ago? Or
I
have
don't
they-
think so. I think it's been remodeled
Yeah.
inside several times because he's had a lot of different tenants over the years.
Okay.
But no, there aren't any as
Yeah, no, I just,
classical.
it was just a question.
This is Ray Ankrum. He's the principal of the Riverhead Charter School.
Sorry,
What?
real quick, Ray Aker for the charter schools. Point of clarification, we don't have to go to SED because we're a charter school.
Okay.
Now, since there's no way to provide an acceleration lane or deceleration lane in there, the only thing I would say is, can you live with the fact that you can only make a right-hand turn and go east? That just seems like it seems tough on you.
Well, I mean, that was a recommendation. I mean, again, it's just
okay.
I'm not saying, we're gonna.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought it was
And they
part
do
of it.
have guards at their charter school on
Right, you'll have
Country that
guards.
come out and
Stop.
direct the buses in
Okay.
and out. I have a question, Greg, about CEQA. I know that we already started coordinating with the town board on the special permit, and then now the planning board's going to do their coordination, correct?
Well,
Or
the
no?
ta-
It'd
the
just be
town
one?
board, would-
Okay.
the town board would request lead agency.
Okay.
Unless the planning board would like to, object to that. Yeah, I mean, this is not, in terms of secret, I mean, I don't think this is a.
No objection.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, in all honesty, I think this is one of the first times we've actually gotten it before the special permit was granted.
They can
So I think
direct
we're
traffic over there.
Yeah, I mean,
seeking our
it-
input early on
It,
this
it
one.
is a requirement for special permits to have them referred, so we're here, the board can make recommendations, we'll transmit them back to the town board for consideration of the special permit.
A school back to a school, what could be wrong?
Yeah. Okay, so, when
I
you.
guess we'll see you again when we get our special permit then.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're gonna submit, as he said, they're gonna submit the
Feedback,
plans that show the
yeah.
bus queuing, lighting, all that sort of stuff. The outdoor play area, the board, I believe he asked the board, would you recommend that to be fenced in?
Well, they're not really dealing with toddlers, they're all high school.
Right.
I don't know if it's gonna be quite as necessary, but just as long as it's safe and, the board can feel that you've got a safe circumstance, I'd be satisfied.
Not near Sound Road,
Yeah, they're not toddlers.
Sound Avenue,
Yeah.
in the back of the school. yeah.
Correct.
Maybe just a condition, if it ever became an elementary school, that we would like to revisit fencing for safety in
That's
the back.
fine.
All right.
Let's hope they don't have to be caged in.
Well, the real little ones like to,
Oh, yeah, no, the little ones absolutely, but not the high school.
But big ones do too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
all right, thank you. Good luck. Okay, we don't have any public hearings scheduled tonight. Next, before we do the resolutions, we will open it up to public comment on any resolutions in front of the planning board this evening. Now I recognize you. You still need your name for the record, please.
Good evening, Mike Foley, Reeves Park, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Board of Directors of Sound Park Heights that represents, as a civic association, our 262 community in Reeves Park. And I'm here tonight to speak against Resolution 2021-101 as presently written, and I'm standing to support the petition that you referred to, Stan, as submitted by 4 civic associations. I'd like to start by referring to the minutes of the public hearing on August the 5th. In speaking to Sean, the applicant, I said, and I'll quote from the minutes, "You spoke about the neighbors on Sound Avenue. Do you have neighbors to the north of you between your property and the Long Island Sound shore? Mr. Kelly replied, no, I don't know. I can't see any of them. Mr. Foley went on, okay, but you know, I don't know either, Sean. But you know something? I think that's something you should know. When you start talking about moving sound away from Sound Avenue and into an area towards the Sound, and you have no idea how many houses might be there, that you are imposing on them towards the Sound, you're imposing on the quiet enjoyment of their life. So the next morning, myself and my wife Barbara took a quick ride on Sound Avenue, and we turned north on Edwards Avenue, which is right behind the Baiting Hollow Farm Vineyard. And there are 7 streets due north of the Baiting Hollow Vineyard. They are Edwards Avenue, Landing Lane, Bluffs Drive, Founder's Path, Meadow Drive, Summit, and Silver Beach Lane, where George Bartnick resides. George, as many of you know, is the former town council person and certainly a fine advocate for open space and for the historic Sound Avenue corridor. I got a phone call from George the next day, who had heard my public hearing and thanked me for standing up, said that he had no idea about this public hearing. And of course, I don't find anything wrong with that, because he was certainly not directly across from Sound Avenue. But when he did find out about it, he wanted to know what he and his neighbors could do to oppose this. I said, well, George, you know, maybe we should start with a petition. Let me talk to a couple of the civic associations. So I contacted 3 other civic associations. The first one, of course, was the Greater Calverton Civic Association, which represents the people in the Calverton area where this vineyard is. And Takwi Turkman, as always, immediately volunteered to participate in the petition drive. I went a little west of that because, again, the historic Sound Avenue corridor is, I don't know, maybe 12, 13 miles. And the westernmost part of the Sound Avenue corridor resides in Wading River. I spoke to Sid Bale, the president of the Wading River Civic Association, and Sid immediately agreed that this is something that we needed to oppose, as written. I went a little east of me to the Northville Civic Association and spoke to Linda Pritzer, who immediately, again, agreed to participate in this petition drive. And I'll read the petition. It's very brief, and it's to the point. And it states, quote, "The Riverhead Planning Board is in the final stages of consideration of the proposed construction of a new wine tasting building for the Baiting Hollow Farm Vineyard on Sound Avenue. Approval of the site will result in the construction of a 6,048 square foot farm-style wine tasting pavilion and construction of a 2,500 square foot farm equipment barn. 2 issues that need to be required by the planning board and included as a restriction running with the land in any potential approval are: 1, all music must be limited to the interior of the wine tasting pavilion with no exterior speakers. And lastly, any use other than wine tasting shall be prohibited." So I'll go right now to the stipulation in 2017 that refers to restrictions prior to the new owner imposed by the Supreme Court. And I'll read the 5-page resolution, just one portion of it, Stan, because I think it's the most pertinent part of it. And it's on page 2 of the 5-page resolution that was put online last night. Whereas, pursuant to it's the third whereas is on page 2. Pursuant to the New York State Agricultural District's Law, Article 25-AA, 305-A, Guideline for Review of Local Laws Affecting Farm Operations which Produce, Prepare, and Market Crops for Wine, Beer, Cider, and Distilled Spirits, last revised January 18, 2017, the New York State Department of Ag and Markets concluded that on-farm wedding receptions, parties, and special events, e.g., harvest festivals of distillery, brewery, cidery, and wine tastings, including charitable events which are held at farms which market their crops as wine, beer, cider, and distilled spirits, help market the farm operations product. Stan, I looked at the ag law that was cited here, and nowhere in those provisions cited by the applicant is there any mention of the word wedding receptions, nor is there any mention of the word parties and special events. It's not there. And if it is there, I'd appreciate the applicant pointing to it to the planning board and to us, because from what I can see, it's not there. That going in that term, I'd like to go back to the board minutes, because it has to do with noise. Sorry about that, it's a lot of pages, I'm trying to be as brief as possible. I had a little conversation with Ed Denzeski on this, and Ed said, I'm going to ask, and certainly there was one other thing. If I had to do it with Solar 2, that's the wrong one, sorry about that. That has to do with another planning board. But back to Ed. I finished my statement by saying that you consider limiting under a permanent covenant the inability for you to do anything other than what you came before this planning board to do, which is to have people taste your wines and have some souvenirs and have a good time and some light music inside those four walls, so people that don't want to hear it don't have to hear it. Thank you very much. And then Ed asked, Mike, can I ask you a question? I'm just curious to what your objections are to parties, weddings, and anniversaries. Why is that different than the everyday function? I don't understand your objection. Mr. Foley replied, I'll be happy to explain that, Ed. If you watched the town board meeting on Tuesday, there was a facility that had originally on its application no intention of having these types of special events, and are now running them every week. And they're driving their neighbors nuts. If he wants to open a catering facility, that changes the demographic of the zoning, does it not? This is a rural corridor. There should not be any halls there that do that kind of activity, Ed. And if you go in under one thing, come on in, taste our grapes, taste our wine, buy our t-shirts, have a little music, and have a good time, I'm fine with that. But once you expand it beyond that, he's not a vineyard anymore, he's a catering hall. Let's call it what it is. And a catering hall does not belong on the historic Sound Avenue corridor. Wouldn't you agree with that, Ed? And Mr. Denzeski said, I got your point, Mike, thank you. So, getting off of that now, just to remind the planning board the importance of the historic Sound Avenue corridor. In the Riverhead zoning, it is the only corridor that is referred specifically in section 301-19, purpose and intent. The intent of the residents A80 zoning use district is to allow for low-density residential development and medium-density residential development with transfer of development rights to allow for the preservation of appropriate agricultural parcels, to ensure the preservation of this historic integrity and rural corridor, character of the Sound Avenue corridor, and to conserve wooded areas and other natural features. I wanted to read that because I think it's important to go back to the 2003 comprehensive plan and things that were not done that were complicated, that were contemplated, and things in the 2022 comprehensive plan that are going to be focused on not only by the people on the Central Advisory Committee, but by every resident in every civic association in the town of Riverhead. I just want to go very quickly to the stipulation in 2017. The LLCs, this is the order of the court. The LLCs will not permit the preparation, cooking, heating, reheating, or serving of food anywhere on the property for sale to visitors except for the sale of prepackaged foods and the preparation and sale of other foods that are served for the purpose of complementing wine tastings and are ordinarily consumed without the use of tableware, including but not limited to cheeses, fruits, vegetables, chocolates, breads, and crackers, as permitted under number 76 of the New York State Alcohol Beverage Control. I actually pulled the regulations on New York State Ag, and it's section 76A, number 4B, numbers 2 and 3, that almost verbatim describe the foods that are allowed in a vineyard. I'll just go very quickly. I appreciate your patience. To the minutes, excuse me, not the minutes, the motions, the decided motions on the same Supreme Court case against Baiting Hollow Farm Vineyards in 2017. Very quickly. Noise is regulated under Chapter 251, Article, this is the judge speaking. noise is regulated under Chapter 251, Article 1 of the Town Code, Section 251-1, of which provides that unreasonable noise is excessive or unusually loud sound, or any sound which either annoys, disturbs, injures or endangers the comfort, repose, health, peace, or safety of a reasonable person. The defendants do not dispute, now again, this is not Sean, this is the prior owner, and I understand that, but we're talking about setting a precedent on the historic Sound Avenue corridor, so I think it's absolutely pertinent to your decision tonight. The judge added, quote, "The defendants do not dispute the playing of amplified music on their property, but they claim that they are exempt from Chapter 251 enforcement because Section 251-6, agricultural operations, from its scope. More specifically, they argue that the term agricultural operations is not defined in the town code, but the term farm operations is defined in Agriculture and Markets Law 301-11. It is essentially synonymous with the undefined term that the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets considers on-farm marketing as part of a farm operation, and that the defendants are engaged in farm operations. The implication being that all elements of the defendant's marketing, including the playing of amplified music in their property, is therefore beyond the scope of enforcement by the town noise control or police officers. The court rejects that argument for a number of reasons, including that the term agricultural operations is in fact discussed at Section 201-4 of the Town Code in the context of protected farm practices without any reference or marketing that has been referred to, unquote. I'm finished with my documents. I just want to finish with this. I have no problem with the Baiting Hollow Farm Vineyard building a 6,048 square foot wine tasting pavilion for the use of wine tasting. I have no problem with them having light music inside for the conversation and enjoyment of what I hope will be thousands of people coming out to enjoy this farm. But farming operations are not a catering hall, and a catering hall is not a farming operation. And I think when we're looking at the 2022 comprehensive plan, we have to look very briefly back to what was said about this back in 2003. And it was Section 15. I know I got a lot of stuff here, but I thought I had it in order. I appreciate your patience. There it is. In the 2003 comprehensive plan, goal 5.5, protect the visual quality of scenic corridors throughout Riverhead and work to improve the scenery along other roads. Quote, scenic corridors are roads, streams, trails, and other linear paths that are characterized by an exceptional visual quality along the sides of the corridor. Many factors may contribute to their visual quality. Views of agricultural landscapes, forested tree cover, the presence of historical sites, views of bluffs, wetlands, water bodies, or other natural features, and so on. These corridors attract tourists and visitors who enjoy driving, walking, biking, and traveling through Riverhead's scenic landscape. These corridors are for the vantage points from which most people, residents and visitors alike, experience rural landscapes. Identifying scenic corridors. The 2003 comprehensive plan identified 18 scenic corridors. One of them, Edwards Avenue. I would submit that the solar panels there probably were not contemplated in 2003 when they contemplated scenic corridors. But I don't want to digress from this. Sound Avenue clearly is not only a historic senior corridor, but will be pushed heavily by many people in this town to be identified as scenic corridors, because it's my understanding that identifying it as a scenic corridor adds additional protections. I mentioned George Bartnick tonight, and George could not be here because of an unbreakable family obligation. But George certainly gave me a copy of the petition. Stan, I know you referred to it. If you have 100 signatures, it's 20 or 30 more than I thought you had. That just tells me somebody else put them in there. But let's just understand what the applicant is doing. The applicant looked at 5 properties on Sound Avenue and said, I got to move the sound north, not knowing how many neighbors were there. 106. It would seem to me that for the betterment of 5, we imposed a detriment on 106. That's not what we're about as a town. That's not what we should be doing. Ed, you talk about the rights of property owners. I'll ask you to consider the rights of 106 owners to the due north and the thousands of people on the historic Sound Avenue corridor that do not want this here. By the way, I hate to say lastly because it seems that's not the case all the time. Did you know that Jamesport Manor is presently being sued by the town of Riverhead for violations of sound, noise, and putting wedding receptions on in Jamesport Manor? Amazing. It happened on September the 20th, so clearly, on August the 5th, I didn't know about it. I didn't know about this until I started looking on the CMA mine update. So I think this is all very important stuff for you to consider. And if you can't table this resolution to try and talk to the owner about trying to come to some settlement that will limit the sounds to indoors and eliminate wedding receptions, then I hope you'll reject that tonight. And I thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to let the rest of the people come up. Anyone else want to speak?
Yeah,
Just state your name for the record, please.
my name's Gary Danowski. I live right across the street from the Bating Hollow Winery. And all these plans people come up with, they sound great, but I want to speak to the underbelly of the beast and what I see. And traffic is a whole other topic. It's horrendous. Trying to get out of my driveway on certain days, especially on the weekend. But there's an increase of garbage that comes across, wrappers, papers, bottles, glasses, constantly picking this stuff up from the front of my hedge. I caught a guy urinating in my hedge. I've seen people vomit in front of my driveway. I even saw people having sex in between little rows of wineries one time. I mean, I can't believe this stuff. What else did I want to say? Got my brain melt now. As far as the noise goes, I can work in my garage. I don't need a radio anymore. I can turn the radio off. The music's loud enough. Every weekend from 12 to 6, the music's blasting. And even sometimes on Saturday when the workers are, I guess, setting up or doing whatever, the music's cranking. It all depends who's working that day. To me, it's like if I lived in a development, and this is my residence, I've lived there most of my life. If you lived in a development where your neighbor was constantly throwing a party every, sometimes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you wouldn't be happy with him. And we're not. We've tolerated, we've put up with it, and we just, we're not kind of, the type of people that really want to make a lot of noise. We just want to get along. So my advice would be somehow contain it and just be respectful and use common sense. And that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Danowski.
Good evening. Sid Bale, Wading River Civic Association. I'll be very, very brief. I agree with the comments of the two speakers. I think there is the possibility of, and you talked about the 2003 comp plan. They talked about conserving and protecting the corridor's character. It has historic, it has aesthetic value, and it also has economic value. Now, in deference to the applicant, they did talk about economic development as well. And I think the only way you could strike a balance between the compatibility between the corridor's character and economic development is to adopt the two provisions that Mike Foley suggested on the petition. Otherwise, I agree with the chairman. You're going to set a precedent. And little by little will be the death of 1,000 cuts for the corridor. So, yes, economic development on the corridor. Gentleman has a right to develop his property, but others also have a dog in this hunt, so to speak. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathy McGraw, and I'm from the Northville Beach Civic Association. Linda Prizer, the president, couldn't be here tonight. I am the vice president. And I would just like to say, first and foremost, that we totally agree with Mr. Foley's remarks and all the other remarks that have been made up here. And I think it's most important that we're talking about a historic corridor that needs a higher level of scrutiny than maybe some other parts of Riverhead. Every civic association along the corridor is opposed to this expansion. And I think the citizens, the people who live there, should carry more weight than the applicant who's seeking to go beyond what is understood as a winery. We live with wineries, we deal with the traffic, it's not great, but Jamesport Manor, I live not far from Manor Lane. What a disaster. And you give an inch, and it just crumbles piece by piece. And I really think that limiting it in the way that Mr. Foley recommended or asks for should be done. Just one or two other things. The number of parking spaces. I'm not any kind of planning expert. I have no expertise in this area at all. But if it requires 65 spaces and you're going to provide 180, just what are you up to there? How many people are going to be coming in and out? And as the neighbor says, we all heard the story of Vineyard 48, and we don't want a repeat of that on Sound Avenue. I live on Sound Shore, Sound Avenue. So I would just urge you to, if you are going to approve this, put in the 2 restrictions and listen to your civic associations. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Takwi Turchin for Greater Calverton Civic Association. So my mask says peace. So I do come in peace. And I wish for peace for the residents. I also wish for a balance for property owners to make a good business in Baiting Hollow and in Calverton and elsewhere in Riverhead. I think that this site plan doesn't do that. And I agree with the previous speakers that the preservation of Sound Avenue is now more important than ever. And the 2003 comp plan language did not land us today at a point where you can say it's protected and the other roads around it are protected. I think there's something like 7 of them in Calverton. So since we're talking only about Sound Avenue, like to see that 2 things. One, I'd like to see that the petition that you see before you be honored. It's been considerably thought about and talked about with neighbors. The other is, at the hearing earlier this year, I asked the applicant, or asked if there was a chance that the parking and the traffic could be rerouted somehow, because making a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn onto Sound Avenue on the heavily trafficked days to this location, which are Saturdays versus Sundays, though Sundays are a little bit lighter, is there a way that there can be maybe an ingress there, but an egress further north on the property, making it available, an agreement between their neighbors? There's a neighbor to the east, and there's a neighbor to the west, that there could be help and an agreement formed, so that what happens is you egress onto Edwards Avenue going south, and then utilize that traffic light, because there's enough traffic there that needs a traffic light, and yet this property doesn't benefit from it. I didn't hear the applicant mention any of the neighbors north of the property, and then in moving his operation off Sound Avenue in an attempt to appease folks closer to Sound Avenue, I think he's not done that job for the folks who live north of him. So I'm hoping that both of those ideas can get a little distance, get a little mileage now from your vote on how it's written now, not acceptable, but also the applicant coming back up and saying, hey, we can look at the ingress and egress problem, because it's a problem, and it's not sufferable for a weekend or two. This is a season's worth, and with the way that the 6,000 square foot building would run with the new use, it would be even larger. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, one more speaker. Hello.
Amanda Grams, resident in Riverhead. Mike just asked me quick to read, this is going to be added into the master plan for 2023?
We're hoping that this language does, yes.
In accordance in Goal 5.5 and Policy 5.5B of the 2003 Comprehensive Plan for the town of Riverhead, we are formally requesting that the Planning Board consider the designation of Sound Avenue as a scenic corridor. As a result of this significant development, proposals during the 1960s and 70s, Sound Avenue was given the distinction by New York State in 1974 as a historic corridor, a distinction which has not resulted in any formal protections of the roadway. According to the policies of Goal 5.5 of the Comprehensive Plan, the scenic corridor designation for Sound Avenue is critical. By designating Sound Avenue as a scenic corridor and establishing guidelines for the future development along this beautiful roadway, the Planning Board and the Town Board will assure that this rural stretch of Riverhead will remain preserved for future generations, as well as serving as a vital corridor for the agricultural activity of this town. I believe this is going to be turned into a petition as well for signatures. I'm just here to let you know that I went down Sound Avenue my whole entire life and have been to every vineyard. Right now, Baiting Hollow has food. Mike had just pulled off their website. They actually even have wedding packages with food. Starting with, well, we all know the Cider House does serve flatbread pizzas and some handheld things. But Roanoke, cheese and crackers. Palmer, cheese and crackers. Some bag items. RGNY, cheese and crackers. I went all the way down to Macquarie, which is in the Southold district, and they even have a sign that says, "No food permitted due to the zoning of Southold Township." So there's something wrong here if you allow weddings with food or big events with food. It's contradiction. I myself live, Mike, would you say a mile and a half away from the vineyard?
2.6 miles.
We hear the Riverhead Raceway all night long, Friday night, Saturday night, and that's all the way down in town. We got together when the Cider House was amplifying music outside for their cornhole and area back out there, and you turned it off, and we thanked you wholeheartedly. Yes, we love the 4-H camp and the bugle in the morning, it's beautiful, and the bugle and taps in the evening. But to hear ramped up music for somebody else's wedding or event, and they're gone, but we've had to endure it. Just want to also let you know, remember, we have Jazz on the Vine, and that music is in a contained area for Jazz on the Vine, which is a wonderful event during the wintertime. Please make the right decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Kelly?
I don't disagree with a lot of what they said with regards to the scenery of Sound Avenue, but what we're talking about here is music. doesn't affect the scenery driving up and down Sound Avenue. With regard to the neighbors to the north, if you recall, I had my engineer here at the last meeting, and he brought an overhead aerial that the next closest house to the back end of my property is over 1,500 feet away, which is also about 800 feet of my property before the 1,500 feet starts. So there is no way that they're going to hear music from my vineyard at those houses. And my neighbor across the street, if he heard something, I apologize. I'm there every weekend. I walk out to the streets, my sons are there, we have total control of it. And we do not play the music to the point where you could even hear it. Now, I have a decibel meter. I'm allowed a certain amount of noise from my property. Actually, I'm supposed to measure it from the front of my neighbor's property, not where it exits mine, where it enters my neighbor. I bring my decibel meter out to the edge of my property, and the traffic noise is much louder than my music. So this is not, and with regard to the agricultural law, I'm going to defer to Greg because he brought it up and added it to the resolution, and we've read together the agricultural law, and it's well contemplated that weddings, just like every other vineyard on Sound Avenue has weddings. As far as the catered food, we have a food truck with its own health department permits, owned by a separate owner, that serves food to the people there. We have prepackaged stuff inside the tasting house if people want it. So the food menu that's there is on behalf of the food truck that's there. Food trucks are at every other vineyard or every brewery that's out there. That's not unheard of. I have no intention of cooking food there myself. As far as weddings, you bring in an outside caterer. And again, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who plays there, whether it's inside or outside. They're plugging into my system, and I have total control of the sound. Again, I apologize to my neighbor who said he hears it from his garage. I wish he would just come over and say hello to me. I would definitely lower it down. As a matter of fact, it did happen one day. We have different controls for different parts, and there's the one that's closest to Sound Avenue. Those speakers face in. And believe it or not, by putting sound that direction, it stops sound from that direction. One day, the adjustment was off. We have numbers on it, and we were supposed to be on a 4. It was on a 5. My neighbor from across the street came over and said, "Hey, Sean, this is like the first time I've ever heard music from here. I just want to know what's going on." I said, "Oh, my God." Brought him inside. I showed him the sound system. I said, "Look, this is the one that's right on the road. This is the one that's supposed to be there." We lowered it, went outside. "Oh, that's perfect. Thank you." And he wasn't yelling or screaming at me. He was just wondering why all of a sudden he could hear the music. And we made the adjustment, and now that zone now is locked, can never go past 4, even if somebody tried to turn it. And he wound up hanging out the rest of the afternoon.
Can I ask you a question? About your system? I hear what you're saying, but is it external as well as internal?
Yeah, we have speakers. I mean, this place is...
Yes, the answer is yes, it is.
Yes, and this...
That's existing.
That exists, and it was there when I bought the place. I've added the components that allow me the control, and then the components where the bands plug into. And we don't really have bands, they're just usually duos, or single singers. They come with a little mixing board. They have a 1/4-inch jack to a double RCA plug, they plug right in, and that's it. They may have a little speaker in front of them as some type of monitoring system so they could hear themselves. But besides that, these are just speakers, and everyone is directed towards the property. Even the one that's closest to Sound Avenue will put there specifically to direct the sound back onto the property. So again, I don't...
With all the controls you have, it sounds like there's separate components for all the different speakers. You could turn off the external speakers.
And you wouldn't hear the music.
Well, they're still internal, you still got going in the other direction.
But, in all honesty, when people are coming out to the vineyards, I don't have one person ever sitting in the tasting house. They're coming out in this beautiful weather so they can hang out outside. It's not unheard of. I routinely go out and check what other people are doing in the neighborhood. And quite honestly, every place is much louder than mine, because they bring in bands that have their own PA systems and blast the music in one direction. And that could travel
But
long
your
distances.
And your new system that you're gonna build with the pavilion will also have speakers, et cetera.
Yes, yes. And again, they'll be designed in such a way that, people will be sitting outside, there'll be music directed to them from the front, and there'll be music directed from the back that contains the noise in one area. They do it, these designs, Disney does a lot. If you ever walk from one land in Disney to the next one, there's one music playing here, you walk through and then you hear the next music start. You can control the directions where sound starts and stops. And that's why, again, I was, surprised to hear that he can hear my music from the garage, because if I can't hear it from my roadway, it's just, surprising to me. And I did all this before I even started my site plan. I knew about the existing lawsuit. I basically bought the vineyard with that, because that lawsuit is still pending. And part of the stipulation was that the old owner would resolve all the outstanding issues. So the first thing I did, before I even opened, was make sure that we had a way to have nice, quiet music outside so people could enjoy. I mean, what I use as a gauge is, I usually walk around with my sons and we talk to each other. If you can't talk to the person right next to you, the music's too loud. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. And a lot of places have it so, okay, if you happen to be sitting by those big giant speakers, we've all had those bad seats at the wedding, right, where they put you next to the speaker, but the people on the other side don't hear anything. You don't have that in my place. It's the same level all the way around. And like I said, we walk around and we check it. I mean, the barn, the new tasting facility we're putting in, is in full character with the neighborhood. It's actually a lot nicer than what's currently there. And the house, the tasting house itself, a restored 1800s farmhouse on Sound Avenue. It's beautiful. I mean, it's consistent with what anybody would want with
You're going to
regards to.
expand that too.
What's that?
You're going to expand that too.
No, that stays the same. We're not touching that. The existing house on the property is not being touched. And, so, that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
That's
Sure.
Yeah, that was an old plan. This is the current revision.
Get into his music. Lower frequencies travel greater distances. That's a fact, physics. So a lot of what I hear is the boom, 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 boom. I don't hear as much of the higher frequencies. And, you're sitting in your living room and your windows are going boom, 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 boom. Not good. The other issue is, at 4 in the morning, his garbage guy comes to get empty his dumpster. So every 4 in the morning, and I got the window open in the summer, the guy's going bang, 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 and hitting the dumpsters. Every morning I wake up, I can't have the windows open. That's an issue. Maybe you can get the guy to come at 6 or whatever when I get up, so it's not waking me up.
Well, they pick up one day a week, so it's not every
Right,
morning.
well,
All right.
when I hear it, it's, now,
And we don't have any subwoofers on the property, so you're not getting any low resonance.
I invite you to come over.
I will.
You can turn it on, you can sit in the living room, and you can hear the boom, boom, boom.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then the other point I wanted to make, on his website, he shows, he brags about a stadium-quality sound system. If you're doing wine tasting, why do you need a stadium-quality system? I think of Yankee Stadium when I hear stadium quality. So, I just don't know why you need it with wine tasting. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think that's everybody who wanted to speak. We will move on to resolutions.
I'd like to move resolution number 99, 817 Pulaski Street Self-Storage Facility to schedule a public hearing. So moved.
Second.
A motion made and seconded to approve resolution 99 to schedule a public hearing for 817 Pulaski Street. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution is approved.
I'll move 2021-100 Riverhead Townhomes, granting the final site plan approval. So moved.
Second.
A motion made and seconded to approve resolution 100 for Riverhead Townhomes, final site plan approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, resolution is approved.
Resolution 101, Bating Hollow Farm Vineyard Tasting Room Expansion, so moved.
Second?
Okay, so this is the resolution that was contemplated tonight as written. And as I stated before, I really think that based on the judge's decision and the interpretation of the town attorney, it is totally left up to this board whether or not outside music is allowable at these venues. And I've said it before, I really think that we would be setting a very dangerous precedent if we allowed this. I don't know of anywhere else where we voted to allow outdoor music in such a manner, especially along this Sound Avenue corridor. So I'm going to call the roll on this vote.
I just want to make a comment before we vote. I agree. We were told, I guess you could say, Greg, we were misinformed all this time that there was, in fact, legislation which did not exist. Is that correct?
You mean specifically regarding
Music.
Music on Sound Avenue?
Right?
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
We
I know
can't
that-
find, no one can find the statute that exists.
Right, but everything we have in front of us tonight says it's left up to this board.
I get that, I get that. But just to make it clear, that no one could find out where it was. We were told before. If we were not told before, would we have in fact approved other vineyards or other breweries? That I think is a question.
I mean, I know that came up, I started here approximately a little over 5 years ago. The first one, I think maybe Grapes and Greens, maybe that's what brought it to the surface. The next one, the first project that I reviewed in terms of it was a brewery on Sound Avenue. We did, that was at the forefront of the board's concerns. Jamesport Farm Brewery did have a resolution that said no outdoor music, live or amplified, shall be played. They filed those covenants on the property. The board would not be without precedent to include that in a condition. But in terms of where the prohibition of music along Sound Avenue, I can't speak to where that originated.
Mr. Kelly, is there any middle ground you think we might be able to come to?
Well, I'm sorry, George, but we have a motion made and seconded, so we really have to move forward on the motion.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any comments?
I do, I'll comment when I vote.
So will I.
Okay, so I'll call the roll. Member O'Day?
Negative.
That's a no vote, correct?
Yes.
Member Bear?
I've listened to the speakers tonight about external speakers, and I totally agree that they should be turned off. And I'm voting no because it's not in the resolution.
Okay, Nunaro?
I vote yes.
Ed?
When I grew up in Riverhead here, Sound Avenue was mostly potatoes. It wasn't that historic and it wasn't that great. Now Sound Avenue is great. It's a destination, and it is because of the wineries, because of the farm stands, because of the cider houses, et cetera, et cetera. The proposed barn absolutely fits in with the rural, historic Sound Avenue. The closest house is about 1,500 feet away from the new barn. The applicant must meet all codes, including noise. I believe the applicant will be a good neighbor. And the applicant should not be punished because another venue in Jamesport is abusing the town codes and is being a bad neighbor. He shouldn't have to pay the price for it. Growing up in Riverhead, we have suffered with a bad reputation, not safe, et cetera, et cetera. Sound Avenue has changed that. Riverhead is now a destination. With that said, I'm going to vote yes.
Okay, so I have previously stated my position on this, and my vote is no. So the resolution is defeated, 3-2. Any comments from the public on any matter in front of the planning board?
Yeah, Mike Foley, Reeves Park. I want to thank the majority of the planning board for listening to the people. And I want to remind you one more time, you worry about property owners' rights, you worry about one applicant's rights, and you forget about the 106. That's what you're doing.
The individual has property rights, and I will stand here and fight for them forever, even if I disagree.
And what about the 106 property owners? Do they have rights to
They're
peaceful
covered by the
enjoyment?
town codes. They're not allowed to.
Excuse me, so I'm going to call this to order and just
Absolutely.
say that we've made our decision.
I thank you very much for the decision,
That's where
and
we are.
look out for noise information written into the town codes coming to a town near you, this comprehensive plan. It's time to close the holes and stop the subjective nonsense about forgetting about 100 people for the benefit of one. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda, meeting minutes from September 16th for approval.
I'll move the minutes of September 16, 2021.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved. We do have an executive session briefly. So what we're going to do is I just want to meet with the board only. We will go out in the hallway. You can leave the camera going, and we'll be back within minutes. So I'm going to make a motion that the board, entertain a motion that the board go into executive session to discuss personnel matter. Okay? So make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. We'll be right back. please. Okay, make a motion to come out of executive session.
So
All in favor? Okay, back in the regular meeting. And our executive session, the board just agreed to make a recommendation on a personnel matter, which we will transmit to the town board in the near future. Other than that, the next meeting is Thursday, October 21st at 3 PM. Motion to adjourn?
moved.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Have a good night.